There you go.
I was trying to get it at the same time you did. So I messed up.
I love this because I've hardly had to do anything today. This is wonderful.
You just sit there and look pretty.
Exactly. Well, that's a lot of work, let me tell you what. This isn't an easy thing to keep up.
That's true.
Coming to you pretty much live from the
Nope.
coming to you. Coming to you pretty much live from the brewing floor at Liability Brewing Company on Stone Avenue in downtown Greenville, South Carolina. I'm Russ Heaps, and welcome to this episode of Beer 101. And that's where we learn a little bit about brewing and about beer and how beer is made. Usually this is handled by Big John Richards on the other end of the dais. But today we have a special guest with us, Jared Tuttle from Liability Brewing. And between the two of them, with absolutely no help from me, we're going to learn about John.
We decided we'd sit and talk a little bit about lager brewing because Jared is a wonderful lager brewer,
thank you.
and I'm going to pick his brain because I am less knowledgeable than him.
And I'm going to drink.
So, Jared, you decided to pour us your amber lager that's on draft today.
Yeah.
Tell us about it, and then we'll start talking
I'll
about
say we could have, our light lagers up there. We have a couple of the lager beers.
Yeah.
Great, but this one's really fun because we got to do a collaboration with Wild Heart at Hartsville.
Fun.
Yeah, Zach down there is an awesome guy, a little rock star, if you will.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad we got to talk about this one. But this beer alone is just, it's a little different than the lagers might be able to get some light or easy drinking.
Well, I think people have a misconception that lager has to be light. And you look at this beer, and it's not light.
Hey,
And you can get much darker.
there's a
than
Baltic
this.
Porter right there.
Yeah,
It's
right?
all lager yeast.
Black.
And yeah, black. Almost as close to a stout as you can.
Right? Yeah.
But here, first of all, cheers.
Yeah. I think that's a good bet. Jared's is lower than ours because he took a step early.
He
cheated.
couldn't wait. Sorry.
Well, I cheated too because I had a whole one of these while we were setting up. So
Oh man, that's real good. Oh,
See,
that's so bready.
Let's talk this real quick. It's like we said, bready, like a touch like a roast.
Yeah.
But not like the bitterness you would get from a stout or something
Right.
like that. Because it's still very crisp.
Yeah.
And you want to go back.
So I've said that amber lager is the best pizza beer on the planet.
Oh, that's such a good pairing.
The best pizza beer on
Yeah.
the planet. It picks up so much of the donuts out of the crust, and then it's just big enough to compete with the flavors that are on top.
Oh, and the acid from the sauce and all that kind of
Yes.
stuff. So you get
Yes.
exactly.
So let me interrupt this bro fest over here. Tell me a little bit about the glasses.
Oh, so glassware is a big thing for us. Sometimes it's hard to have the glassware in a brewery because proper glassware can be expensive, and this one right here is very fragile.
Yeah.
This is actually the one we did for our 3-year anniversary, and we still have some left. We'd like to use it for lager glasses, but the idea of straightforward, easy to drink, all your aromatics come right at you.
Yeah. And a Pilsner glass should always have straight sides.
Yeah.
And
You want to be able to you want to see the beer.
yes.
And that's one big part of it. Some of the other ones, like a tulip or something for a stout or a Belgian beer, that sometimes it's meant to help warm it up. You
Right.
Put your hands around it, right?
Yeah.
But clarity sometimes not. So a straight glass like this really lets you see what the beer is, like from beginning to end.
Okay,
We have
I'm
a crutch. We have a crutch because we got a light on the other side of the beer from us. You guys don't have that. But man, the amber, almost ruby highlights that are in that beer that's a beautiful
It's
beer.
nice, like chocolate orange.
It is.
Yeah.
It is gorgeous. It is a gorgeous beer.
Well, and when we make lagers, that is one thing I look for is the nice clarity, something that will drop and clear up really nice for you.
Right.
You just get the beer and not all the other flavors that kind of come with the ingredients you add, like IPA, obviously the hops and everything there, especially like hazy. You're tasting all those.
Yeah. Well, so I like to, and I'm going to then really turn this over to you for a minute.
Yeah.
But I like to talk about the primary difference between ales and lagers, despite the ingredient difference, is that lagers tend to be fewer flavors but more distinct. And ales tend to be more subtle or indistinct or sometimes even muddy flavors. But lagers almost have to be these simple, clean, very distinct beers.
Your yeast is every beer. The yeast is the ingredient.
Right.
ingredient.
That's the ingredient that
Right.
makes it the beer.
And that's exactly right. And it's ironic that lagers are they're cold fermenting, so they ferment from the bottom of the fermentation vessel, and they're kind of lazy.
Right.
You know, and you know, every time I'm having a lager on the river, you know, floating down, I'm like, this beer's meant for me. I'm being lazy today. This beer's been lazy until life. But some of those subtleties.
I like that.
Yeah, you know. That's,
You are what you drink.
you're right. That's right. I drink a lot. No, okay. But
So you are a lot.
both sides of the spectrum. So when it comes to these lager beers, like you're right, temperature is so important because if you get it too warm, that yeast gets active and wants to do a lot,
Right.
and sometimes overworks itself.
Yeah.
So you kind of want it to be lazy and go through its process of taking all these sugars that we've made for it into something very unique. So it being cold.
What's the temperature fermentation range that you would use on a lager yeast?
You know, most of us, our lagers around here about I'd say 56 to like 62, 64
Yeah.
degrees. And the 60s are actually kind of on the high end. 58 is
Yeah.
pretty much where we try to land with most of them, especially with like a wine fun yeast that this is, which is
Oh, nice.
a very classic
Yeah.
lager yeast. If there's not a brewery in the world that doesn't use it, you know,
Right.
they're on a different train. But it's such a clean, hardworking, lazy yeast.
Right.
You know. So that the yeast being the character of that really brings forward all the other notes that we put in. Say I put a ale yeast in this, I can brew very similar to this beer.
Right.
And now you have an amber ale,
Right.
which is definitely more robust and has a lot more of those flavors. It's not something that I'm really struggling not to drink all of this right now.
Right. Yeah.
So something that just is maybe less palate intense, but more creative or more like different.
Yeah, so it's refined, it's subtle.
Yeah, that
It's-
would be a good way to say it.
Yeah. You know, the ale yeast makes a beer a little bit more brash, I think. And then lager yeast, if done correctly, it lets everything settle out, and the things that the beer and the yeast don't like, they get to go away.
And you know, one of the biggest points of that is the malt that you use.
Right.
This is a Pilsner malt that we use as a base, or maybe I would use a pale malt for maybe an amber ale.
Yep.
But the Pilsner malt is lower in protein. It really
Right.
helps drive that clarity and lighter body than something like a pale or a two-row might
Yeah.
have higher protein, where it literally, it sits heavier, I guess you could say.
Right.
That's probably one of the biggest.
Robust earlier, what you were
Yeah,
like with
robust.
that. Yeah.
That, and then just the fact of knowing that we're going to work with that yeast, not as many adjuncts are added because you don't need as much, to where the ale yeast is going to play with all those other compounds
Sure.
to make more flavors,
Yeah.
while the yeast is going to take something simple and transform it into something that wasn't there before. So even like the Baltic Porter.
Okay, go on.
So chocolate malt, something that I love. One of my buddies at Swanbright Brewery, Andrew Myers.
Oh, yeah,
When
yeah.
we used to homebrew together, we always had one of these things. You just throw a handful of chocolate in there because it has like this little underlying flavor. Even this beer has some chocolate in it. I'm not gonna
Right.
lie. When you go to this Baltic Porter, it doesn't make it sweet. It doesn't make it roasty. It makes it more of a like that smooth chocolate. I don't want to say milk because milk would not be the right
Right.
word, but just one of those. You see a chef sometimes take something and just
Yeah.
smear it across. That flavor, if you can translate that into a taste.
That's the way I like talking about things. That's the way I like talking about flavors.
That's sometimes the way the brain works, and it's like, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So what keeps you guys pro brewers from brewing more lagers?
You know, sometimes it's just the not so much the convincing but the opening
Opening
customer
lines.
spots. Yeah,
Yeah.
opening lines of realizing that like even though this is an amber lager, I mean this is a dark beer.
Yeah.
You're going to enjoy it when it's 80, 90 degrees outside.
Right.
Our Ted Danzig is our black lager. Schwarzbier,
Classic
if you will.
example, right?
It is a black beer. But I love to drink it in the summer whenever I just
Absolutely.
want something.
We used to blow people's minds with those kinds of beers like Zingu back in the day. Just throw a black, absolutely black beer in front of someone, they pick it up and they go, what's
Where's
just
the
happened?"
roast? Where's the burnt?
Right? Why
Where's
is it so
the
light?
roast?
Why is it so easy to drink?
And that a lot comes from the yeast and the malt that you're using.
But it does take a lot longer to brew one of these, right?
Yeah. Being that it's a lazy yeast, it's usually a 3 to 4 week, all the way up to like 6, 8. You can go long and it'll sit and it'll keep kind of changing. The yeast does its activity and kind of then again goes to sleep. But the beer continues to change.
Yeah.
I don't know the science behind all that, but I know that like if I let this sit for like a month,
Yeah.
it will be more rounded and complex.
Well, that's
Less
the
full.
lagering process.
Correct. Yeah.
And the lager is the German word, is the German verb for store, to store.
To store,
Right? So, and that's how it got its name. You have to store that beer for a little longer.
I think about it whenever you like make chili.
Right.
It's always better the next day, and all those flavors just kind of meld.
Yeah.
The ale yeast just goes, and that's
Right.
there it is.
Yeah.
And they keep water too, which is really nice.
Sure. Yeah.
But again, if you're going to make a lager beer, that temperature is so important because your yeast is your worker.
Right.
If that yeast is not happy, the beer is not going to be happy.
Right.
You know, making a lager beer rounded can be difficult as well because you don't have as much, like we said before, to kind of hide behind. You want, if I added too much of roast to this, it now just becomes like a lagered amber ale.
Right.
You know, how you go that route. pH is super important.
Yeah.
That's something that I think a lot of brewers utilize, and maybe like home brewers or people that don't sometimes get it. I mean, this beer is probably about 4.6 pH or something like that.
Wow.
And most ales and lagers are about that low.
Wow.
So when you drink it, that kind of like
Get that pink. It's that acidic sort of pink.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's not water, right? The
Right.
water's neutral, 7 pH, and having that lower also helps with crispness.
Yes.
The salts that we use in our water, using chloride or gypsum, gypsum can add a lot of body.
Sure.
So it probably helps a little bit with the Baltic.
Yeah.
But on this, trying to get that crisp bite.
Yeah.
So chloride's a big one for it. Those are the ways to really
I
wrap.
think a lot of even professional brewers don't pay enough attention to their water chemistry.
Or what are you trying to say? That Jared is not a professional brewer? Is that what you said?
Well,
Did I misunderstand?
he brought up home brewers, so I brought up professional brewers.
Well, and you know, it's definitely one of those things. That,
Wow, you know, you've been so hospitable to us. I think that was totally uncalled for.
when I was a home brewer, it wasn't a huge concern. Alright? And you know, we're lucky. Greenville has some of the best water in the world.
But sometimes I
Oh,
think
yeah.
it's too clean.
Exactly. It's nice to start with a zero base,
Right.
but if you really want to bring out some of the extra quality in your
Do
beer,
something else.
a little curl pizzazz in there.
Right.
We use table salt, NaCl,
Well, yeah.
and a few of our beers, like Ted Danzig, has some table salt in
Yeah.
it because it really turns out the flavors,
Right.
just like you would salt your food. So, like a lager that is black, where you don't want it to roast, but you want to pump some of those flavors.
Yeah.
Like adding some of that NaCl
Yeah.
makes it more flavorful.
And just to be clear, you're talking about adding it during the brew, and not when you pour
Yes,
it in glass.
yeah, not in the glass. That will help with head retention, though. It makes all the
Yeah,
carbonation
yeah,
come out.
right.
But, yeah, not directly in the glass, and that's the.
And then a hard-boiled egg.
You're treating the water so that
Right.
you can transform the starches into sugars. That then the sugars compounds come that you boil, and then the yeast takes it, and that yeast eats those sugars and makes the flavor. So you're
Yeah.
basically making the nutrient for the yeast to make the beer.
Yeah.
That's what I got to say about that.
Anything
like
else?
Y'all like it?
We may be running out of
got
time. This beer is super fun. Again, it's smooth and super crisp with that big bready front end, and then that real dry. And now that we've talked about it even more, there's that little ping of acidity on the finish that really dries this up more than hops even probably would.
Yeah.
And it keeps it from being bitter. It just lets it be crisp. It's super good.
Crisp and clean, man. That's
Yeah.
what we're all about. And look forward to more lagers from us because that's something we're really gonna
Good.
start pushing.
I heard news of 2 new lager takes coming, so
You're a Christmas present.
Just do it.
Cheers, guys. Thanks so much for having me.
So damn lucky. See you next time.